Hello and welcome to Stereotypical, a podcast about music and the people who make it, brought to you by the OX Collective. My name's McGrath and I'm here at Allo Sound Studios, as always joined by Mr. Jack O'Neill to discuss mental health. So you've had a bad day?
Yeah.
You feeling alright?
I'm alright, yeah, I'm good to go. I'll get over it.
You feeling ready for the podcast?
Yeah, I guess so.
Do you want to
Block
talk?
it all out. Flip the switch, bro. Flip the switch.
Well, we need to talk about that later because that's clearly an issue.
Come back to the switch.
Yeah. I'm surprised that you even agreed to do this podcast, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Because like you've said multiple times on this podcast that you're emotionless and that you don't like talking about your feelings.
Yeah. I'm a brick. I have no feelings.
But we know that's not true, and that's the exact
That's a lie.
That's the exact opposite message that we're trying to convey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's just something I tell myself sometimes to get through the hardships.
I mean, I guess we can get into that later. Depends how much of a therapy session you want it to be. But yeah, no, I think it's like important to have these sorts of conversations. In music and like the arts or whatever, because high pressure. I feel like sometimes people think, oh, it's just a hobby, but it's like, you know, a lot of time you're self-employed, and especially given the year that we've had. You know what I mean? There's a lot going on, a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
And also, we are northern men who are not fit. You particularly are a very northern man.
I am.
And, you know, we're not particularly known for displaying our feelings.
Yeah, I guess so.
And I guess, I don't know, I've noticed that over the past, like, year or so, that, like, me and you and, like, Jamie and Sean, who I'm in the band with, we can always talk about stuff, you know what I mean? I feel like it's important to look out for the homies. That's a message that I want to get out there. So the way we've structured this is essentially similar to the episode on creativity that we did the other month. We've got like questions for each other, topics that we want to talk about. So it's sort of like us interviewing each other to a degree, but also we haven't pre-discussed this.
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting part, innit? Because usually when we sit down beforehand, we'll talk about what we're going to talk about in the podcast.
Yeah.
And then like we almost have to try and not say what we're thinking at the time.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, save it. Because that's the juicy stuff.
Yeah.
So this time we're kind of going in blind, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've got questions you don't know. You've got stuff that I don't know.
I think that's good though, because especially if we're trying to have like an authentic conversation, which we are, about things that are, you know, a bit touchy, a bit deep, a bit personal, you know. And obviously we're good friends. We know a lot about each other. Anyway, all right, cheers. We're close enough friends.
Yeah, I'd put you top 5.
Yeah, we've said this before. I'm just debating where I'd put you in the top 5, but I guess that's not fair to tell you. So yeah, you're also top 5 of my friends as well. So obviously we know a lot about each other's feelings on stuff.
Yep.
But I guess maybe hopefully there'll be some stuff in this that we uncover that's like a bit new that we haven't necessarily talked about before.
Yeah, I guess so. Like even just that then like is a bit weird, do you know what I mean? Like saying like we know each other's feelings and stuff. It just starts, it's a nerve, doesn't it?
Well, it does for you.
Yeah.
It does for you because you're uncomfortable with that sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not ashamed to say I'm uncomfortable with that sort of stuff.
I remember being at your 21st birthday actually with your girlfriend and talking about how soft you are.
Yeah.
And you were like,
all lies.
I've got no feelings, I'm a brick, lad. And then
emotionless.
And then you got drunk and told me, Dad, how much you loved me.
Big up, Gary.
Which I'll always remember. Thank you for displaying your feelings.
Okay.
So.
Comes not so often, so.
I know. That's what I mean. Especially at that time, it never came, so I feel grateful. Yeah. So, do you want to go in? Do you want to start
I'll start with my questions, yeah. So, this first one, I feel like is something I think about a lot to myself, do you know what I mean? But you're like a lot more outgoing with your music than I am anyway. Right. So my first question is, how do you react to comparing yourself with others' success?
Badly.
Which I feel like it's something we all do, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't know, I've gotten to a point where I try not to give a shit, but you still, like, you're always, and like Instagram doesn't help. This is why I try not to go on Instagram in the mornings or like too late at night, because you'll see like other bands that you know or whatever that are doing stuff that you want to be doing. And especially given like the weirdness of the past year. It feels like some people are ahead and I'm like falling behind sometimes. So I don't know. I guess I don't know how I deal with it other than just try to ignore it. But I think like with anything that is, I don't want to say competitive, but I guess it is kind of competitive.
It's a very saturated market.
Yeah, there's always going to be, I don't know, you're always going to be like, eyeing up other people's success and like comparing yourself in that way. There's two sides to it. One side I think is quite good, which is sort of a creative jealousy. When I hear something that I think is really good, and that sort of spurs me on to try and do better because I know that I'm not as good as that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that can be like, that can fuel you, and that can be a really positive thing. But then obviously there's the sort of more material, sort of career jealousy.
Yeah.
Which is like, oh, they're getting signed and we aren't. You know what I mean? Which again, there's not really a way around, but it's also, it doesn't matter, you know what I mean? Like, you hear it time and time again, but like someone else's success doesn't equate to the same as your success, you know what I mean? And success might be different things for different people. And something that I try and do anyway in general is to have like smaller goals that you, rather than be like, just think about the end goal, you need to think about all the smaller goals that make up to that. So I'm too busy being like, these days anyway, now that I've got like a better mindset on it, I'm too busy thinking about like just getting through the next few weeks. You know what I mean? Like, what can we do now that will set us up for later? Like, we don't have to immediately be like, this is the thing that has to happen now, just because it's happening for other people. You know what I mean? And what you'll often find is, even though it's happening for other people now, they've still been through all the other little goals to get there anyway. You know what I mean? Especially on social media, you only see the end thing. You know what I mean? You don't see.
It's a highlight reel, isn't it? Social media.
Yeah, and people just like can use it to show the best bits, and like, especially if you're an artist or a musician, a lot of the sort of, obviously the creative side of it is interesting, but a lot of the steps that you will take to get to where you want to be in your career can be quite boring. You know what I mean? So like, no one's gonna be posting about, I've just been for a meeting with our fucking manager and all this shit, and like, because no one cares, you know what I mean? Like, who cares about that? So you don't get to see all the little things and all the bad things, you know what I mean? You don't get to see the people's hard days, just like you have tough days where you might be like down about your success or your path or whatever. No one shows you those days, so you just think, oh, this is just me, when in fact it's probably everyone that's going through it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sort of linking onto that, what I was going to talk to you about is like, as someone who challenges themselves to be sort of expressive creatively, do you think that opens you up to any sort of insecurities about your abilities, and like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so a lot of my insecurities sometimes come from just like comparing like just like my production, not even techniques, just like the sonics of it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So there's been plenty of times where I'll be trying to make something, and I feel like subconsciously I'm trying to get it to sound like something that already exists.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, like I'll be into it like a few hours and I'll just feel like shit, but not knowing that I'm trying to get it to sound like something.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's not even necessarily right for like the project. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe what I'm trying to do doesn't fit, but because I've got this idea in my mind of like, this is how, you know, the famous people do it.
Yeah.
That'll make me feel like shit. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of times I just F or just get off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think sort of what I've learned is to almost take pleasure in the individuality that comes from trying to reach, you know, like you were saying, you're trying to make it sound like a certain way, like the professional way, what you view as the successful way, the professional way, the famous way. Trying to aim for that, but then doing it just ends up like being your version of it, and it's not like, obviously you and I are smaller producers, so it's probably never going to be quite up there yet, because we're working in smaller studios with less expensive equipment, and like we've maybe not been doing it as long or whatever, but it's going to be us. It's going to be our unique thing no matter, even if it's not the same as the successful thing. Because if you think about it, that's how people come up with their sound. You know what I mean? Like, take Phineas, right? And we've talked about Billy Eilish and Phineas before. But, like, I feel like he's in his own lane production-wise because, as a lot of younger producers would, he's probably, like, aimed for something that he's influenced by, missed, and then that's him, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he's just landed there.
Yeah.
So another thing that grinds my gears is, like, a lot of these things you see on, like, YouTube videos or, like, a lot of TikToks recently where it's, like, 5 things, like, you need to know or must do to make your production sound sick or whatever. And, like, it'll go through these techniques and stuff that realistically you don't need to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think it helps when, like, people like me and you would have, like, looked up all these things to begin with and then might have gone through our mixes or whatever and gone, oh, shit, we haven't done this. Mustn't be good enough, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we realistically, like, there is no rules to it, do you know what I mean?
No, and I think it's a sort of damaging, a damaging way to put information out there, as in, like, you need this and you should do this and you should do that, because, like, it's so, like, art in general is so, like, subjective and all this, and, like, it's probably bad to make people feel like they need to do a certain thing.
Like, I understand the premise of, like, you know, it might be a helpful tip or not,
I mean?
Well, I just think, you know, maybe I just reword it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as well, like, that goes for anything that we ever say on this podcast that might come across as, like,
gospel.
Advice. A lot of the time it's just purely anecdotal stuff. Like, we are just talking about our experiences with our creativity and our, you know, our fucking mental health or our thinking or whatever.
Yeah.
Particularly in this episode. What I was going to ask you is, is there anything you've learned recently or, like, just over the time that you've been making stuff and being an artist that sticks out to you about, like, how to keep, like, a positive mindset and look after your well-being in that
Yeah,
frame
so,
of mind?
like, at the start of this year, like, there was a time when I went to uni and, long story short, dropped out after a year and a half. Just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
Not something, again, like, I remember when we was, like, applying and stuff, he was like, oh, I'm not going, it just isn't for me.
Yeah.
And it was, like, so against the grain for the situation we was in, do you know what I mean? Because they were trying to push everyone towards it. So I went, didn't really learn a lot that I didn't know already, because, like I said, we'd do a lot of stuff at home and, like, I did my own research. And then the second year, they was pushing everyone one direction, wasn't for me. And at the time, it was like, I didn't want to make any music because I wasn't making it for fun. I was making it towards deadlines.
Yeah.
And at the start of this year, I was like, right, I'm not going to be arsed anymore. Like, there's a lot of times I'll just work on something so much and, like, I'll think, oh, what are people going to think?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'll just leave it. I won't do anything. Or it's, you know, the typical, it's not finished, it'll never be finished sort of thing. So at the start of this year, I told myself, just don't be arsed. Like, do you know what I mean? Who cares? Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
There's some stuff that I've heard that is well worse than my shit, and they're buzzing about it. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like that's, like, the right attitude to have as well, to a degree. Obviously, you need to be self-aware of what you're making, but, like, even just to get you out the gate, you need to be like, okay, this is a judgment-free zone. Especially, like, I think it doesn't help that, like, you make stuff by yourself a lot of the time, and like, so you get in your head about it and stuff. And I remember saying that to you, like, a while ago, that, like, you just need to make stuff. It doesn't matter if it's going to be finished. It doesn't matter if it's going to be used for this or used for that or get released or whatever.
But yeah, like I say to a lot of people now, with, like, who I talk to, like, I'll speak to my friends and they're like, oh, I feel like I want to do this, but, you know, I'm a bit anxious. I'm like, if you don't do it, you'll just get you in your own head about it and you'll piss yourself off because you haven't done it.
Yeah.
But then I was like, why am I telling this guy this thing when I'm not doing it? You know what I mean? You just got to take your own advice sometimes.
I think when we, particularly around the time when we finished college, I didn't really write anything for, like, 6 months because I was just, like, afraid that it wouldn't be good enough. And it's like, and we've talked about this before, like, it's never gonna, you have to be a bit shit anyway to get better. It's never gonna be good if you don't try, but it's just about overcoming that mental hurdle to get to the point where you can actually create something.
Goes back to, like, the 1 in 5 songs theory that you taught me that time.
Yeah.
But staying on this sort of thing, my second question is, how arsed are you really about others knowing how you feel through writing?
Less arsed than I used to be. I feel like, especially because I've been writing since I was young.
Yeah.
like, because when I first started writing, obviously, like, I was like early teens or whatever, probably even younger. Like, the only people that really hear your songs are like your parents or whatever. So I never wanted to say something that was gonna like give the game away and like let my parents know what was going on with me or whatever. But as I've gotten older, I'm just generally more open as a person, hence why we're able to do things like this. But I don't worry about it too much. I feel like my songs have gotten less, but we've talked about this before. I feel like I peaked at like 17.
Yeah.
My songs have gotten, they were very personal then, but now that I have the ability to talk about that through other outlets, say, I'm not really too bothered about what I write about, because it's not as explicit, or maybe it is more explicitly personal. I don't know. It's weird to like look at my own work and like think about it like that. You know what I mean?
feel like, because like sometimes, well, mostly every time you write something, I'm always the first one to go, fucking, what is this about? What's the meaning behind it? Or even when like we're writing together, like we go opposite, we're like, right, think of the feeling, and then put it into words. You know what I mean? To fit the song.
No, I think definitely now I'm more willing to just, and I can't remember who said it, man, but like it might have even been like a Mighty Healy thing, but like he was talking about if it's gotten to the point where he's thought of it for a possible song lyric, he then can't go back and be like, no, that's too personal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's thought of, it's coming out.
Yeah, they are creeping in again, lad. 1975. Make it in somehow, don't they?
Yeah, always. But
just because like there was a time where like we'd be writing and I'd write stuff down and I just wouldn't tell you what I've written. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd be like kind of scared almost. Do you know what I mean?
That's interesting.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't know about that. That's strange.
I'd say it first probably stopped like when I wrote the summer chorus.
Yeah, well, because for a good while when we worked together, I just wrote all the lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
But, well, apparently not. Secretly, you were writing the lyrics as well, but you weren't willing to tell me. But, yeah.
Like, I'd have, like, 7 lines, but I'm just, like, writing what you're writing, do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know, it's a good outlet as well. Like, I think you need, once you do get over the hurdle of, like, oh, people are going to hear this, like, you do have, I know this is the way it worked for me when I was younger, that, like, you have the ability to say things that you might not necessarily be able to say in a conversation.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because you can cloud it in other things, like metaphors and stuff, but I think it's a healthy creative outlet, you know what I mean? And it's healthy to be honest. And also it makes for the best art if you're just honest. Like changing lanes slightly, something that we were talking a bit about before. Recently, over the past like year or so, I've really sort of learned about the concept of like burnout and, you know, pushing yourself too hard.
Yep.
And you're a guy who, at least from like my point of view, I always see as like you're always working and juggling work and like creative projects and social life and all this.
Yeah.
And you never seem to stop. Does that ever take its toll on you? Like, how do you deal with that?
It does creatively.
Yeah.
Like, there'll be time, like you're saying, that if you've got so many plates spinning at once, something's going to fall off, do you know what I mean? And you're going to spend less time doing something. Most of the time now, it is music.
Yeah.
You know, there's been some times where, like, you know, I've been putting other stuff, like, before Ellie, for example, do you know what I mean? And just not having enough time to see her and stuff. Or there'll be times where, like, I'll just be at home doing nothing and I'll feel like shit for not doing nothing, do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I need to be doing something.
Yeah.
And lockdown busted that open a lot, do you know what I mean?
Same.
Because there was definitely a time where, like, I was timetabling myself. I was like, right, I'll finish at 3. I need to be ready for 4:30 to go and do this thing for 2 hours, and then I'll be doing this, whatever, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not having that kind of put me in a different mental space, do you know what I mean? Having all that free time.
Yeah.
It was weird.
Why do you think it is that you fill up your time so much?
Don't know.
Just like doing stuff.
Well, yeah, I guess so. I feel like just like doing a lot of things, do you know what I mean? Like I've said before, like I'm not a guy who is fantastic at this one thing, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm kind of mediocre at a lot of things.
Yeah.
So I enjoy doing stuff. Like, even if I'm bad at it, I'll do it for fun, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Could be music, for example, you know what I mean? Could be playing, you know, on a Monday night in Widnight.
Yeah.
I just like doing stuff that I enjoy.
So then how do you think after the lockdown, like how are you with that now? Now that like life has started back up again, because I feel like personally, I was in the same situation as you. You know, like everything that I was working on sort of stopped.
Yeah.
And then I had to deal with not having anything to do and just like spending that alone time.
Yeah.
And then I think it's been like difficult for me to juggle now that things are starting to happen again, like getting everything back in there with also spending time for myself that I learned to value time for myself over the first lockdown. So now I'm like trying to add that
Personally,
in.
I look forward to it. I look forward to being that busy again.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think I've gone through, like, you know, because it's like mental health episode and stuff, I've gone through like a massive arc over the past 6 months of, you know, thinking a lot of stuff and overthinking a lot of stuff and having the time, well, the free time to having to think about that stuff. Whereas there'd be some times where like, oh, I'm not going to think about it, I'm going to go and do something instead and not think about it. So I'm excited to get back into stuff. Not necessarily to block that shit out, because I kind of find out how to cope with it now.
Do you think that the sort of the lockdown was part of what triggered the initiation of that arc of like sort of self
realization?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of. Like, it gives you a lot of time to think about stuff, and it puts life into bare bones, doesn't it? Like, before lockdown, I would have, you know, valued my life on certain things that weren't available anymore.
Yeah.
So then it just kind of comes down to you as a person, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I guess it's kind of hard to deal with, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It just kind of hit like a brick wall
for
me personally.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You got to think about these things.
Yeah, that was definitely like, because it was around that time that I started a similar sort of arc of self-realization, if you want to call it, because everything that I was working on, like, just fucking fell apart. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, we've spoken about it before, how like I work a lot by myself, and you've told me like you've realised, you know, you like working with other people, something that spurs you on, and that was like sort of taken away from you.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, like, there's many times I've said to you or anyone, like, I'm pretty much a social butterfly.
Yeah.
Like, I just kind of thrive with people, and like that was taken away from me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just different realisations.
Yeah. How do you think the sort of slight stigma around men's mental health impacted that sort of
I'd say
that change?
I'd say it's always been a thing, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I'd say for a lot of it, like, you're the only male friend that I've got who, like, I speak to about that sort of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I guess there's been times where I've tried to speak about stuff to other people, like in my friendship group, and it just kind of doesn't sit right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just flipping back to the songwriting thing, like with you, I think it's kind of easier because we're both in the same boat. Do you know what I mean? But like, if I was going to talk to someone else about the stuff that we write, I'd be like, oh, it's a bit weird, that, innit?
Yeah.
Getting that sort of personal about it. So yeah, I'd say in lockdown, like I said, if you're struggling with stuff, it's kind of hard. I don't know why it's hard. It makes no sense to struggle with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, a problem shared is a problem halved.
Yeah, totally.
Quote that. But so yeah, like I said to you before, like, if I was in physical pain, and I was like bleeding or something, and I didn't do anything about it or didn't talk about it, it'd be fucked, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Am I not getting it sorted? Like, I'm not saying, you know, people deal with stuff in their own way. There's nothing wrong with the way people deal with stuff.
Yeah.
But personally, for me, it was bad at one point. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you just need to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's like internal, isn't it? Like that stigma. Like, I don't know where it comes from.
And I think, like, I don't know, I imagine it got to a similar place with you, but for me, the only reason I ended up like opening up more is because it just got so bad that it was like the only option. You know what I mean? It was probably like the only thing left that I hadn't tried to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, something needs to happen in like the way I'm fucking acting and to change things up a bit. And that was the only thing left. But I don't know, I feel like I've been quite lucky in the sense that a lot of my close friends growing up have been female.
Yeah.
So maybe that's...
I think this a lot when I was like planning my questions and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like your friendship group is like the same now as it was like when you was in school.
Yeah.
And like a lot of them are girls. Maybe it was like sort of easier for you to connect to that sort of side of things, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just might have been more present. Whereas the typical, lad upbringing is like talking about fucking football or whatever, wrestling. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is something that I realised, like, as I get older and spend more time around like men and like older dudes, particularly like working on stuff with different people. It's just like they don't talk about shit. You know what I mean? Like they're talking to each other, but nothing that they're saying really matters. You know what I mean?
This happens a lot with like me and Ellie, right? Like I will talk to someone for 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
And she'll just go, "Oh, how's he doing?" And I'm like, "Fuck, I don't know. Didn't talk about it." And she'll go, "Oh, is he enjoying work now?" I'm like, "Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, how have we not talked about that basic thing? Do you know what I mean?"
Yeah. And even me, like I actively, particularly with like you and like I was saying with like Sean and Jamie, I try and I'm getting there with Paul. I'm trying to crack the pavement on Paul soon. But like I'll try and ask like
pub golf will open you up, Paul.
like how's how's life, how's work, like what's going on, how are you feeling and stuff, just because I know that sometimes it's maybe not as ingrained in us as it is in other people or like women or whatever to necessarily talk about those deeper level shit.
Sometimes not even deeper level, it's just like personal things.
Yeah, just like just basic shit, you know what I mean? Because like we always have a laugh, me and you, or like me and the boys or whatever, but it is sometimes important.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, like as being male, like affected you, like being freely creative. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think when it comes to the creative side of things, not really. I've always been sort of fine with that. I mean, I guess like creative adjacent being like a sort of in the arts and being like left field in the way that in the music that I listen to and the way that I dressed in like school. Yeah, probably had a negative impact on like my credibility. You know what I mean? Like people took the piss of it. But I was wearing girls' jeans and
to be fair, I was like,
and there's absolutely nothing wrong with wearing girls' jeans. I would still support it, but like wear a dress if you want, do what you want, but like it makes you stand out. You know what I mean? And particularly back then, you know what I mean? This is like 2010 to 2015 when I was in high school. It wasn't quite as normal of a time, so I was like, wearing all black and listening to all sorts of bands and stuff. I got called goth for like an Arctic Monkeys once. Which is just, it tells you what kind of school I was at. But nah, I don't think it's affected my creativity per se, or necessarily my openness about these sort of things.
But then again, like I guess for you in this situation, like I said, within your friendship group, like you was kind of all like that, so it could have been like a subjective norm for that group. Yeah,
true. And I think now that I'm a bit older and I think I'm like as close to sort of like you and the boys as I am to sort of the female friends that I'm close with and have been close with for years. I try and bring some of that over. You know what I mean?
I definitely agree. I think like I'm the same, like because I'm older than a few of my friends, especially like my work friends. Like I feel like it's kind of like giving them advice like you sort of wish you had. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just like I'm saying, like in this last year, like how much we've grown, just about how we can talk about things now. Like, and we can pass that down now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And it's good because like I feel like something that I've observed with like members of my own family is like my grandparents' generation they're completely shut off to that. They aren't aware a lot of the time that like mental health problems are even a thing. You know what I mean? Like they just don't know how to process their emotions as well. And then my dad's generation is slightly better, but like they might not learn how to process things properly or be open about things until they're sort of later in life. I feel like it's good that we can do it in our early 20s now because we save a lot of years of confusion and like bottling stuff up and then taking it out on other people. You know what I mean? The last question that I had for you was, what do you think the biggest revelation has been about mental health that you've had? Because I know you have been through sort of a lot of thinking, a lot of change in the past year.
Yeah. Like this time last year, I wouldn't even thought about mental health. Do you know what I mean? Like I've always known like you need to be in like a good headspace, and the one thing I've noticed just from like growing up in general is like when I was younger, maybe in like year 8 or something, like you talk a lot about feelings and stuff. Do you know what I mean? And just like what's wrong with people. And I feel like we used to have that deep conversation a lot of times to a lot of people. Do you know what I mean? Like if someone was down, you're like, fucking let's talk about it, let's make you feel better.
Yeah.
And as you get older, it just kind of stops. Do you know what I mean? I guess it's just because people are so busy, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
There's just so much shit going on, and people are like so focused on work, for example, and your free time becomes so limited that you just stop talking about it because your problems have to be like put on the shelf.
Yeah.
Like even when I'm in work and something's going on with someone, I'd be like, you know, if we're in work, you leave it at the door. You have to kind of get on with it.
Yeah.
So I feel like a big revelation for me is just being open to talking about it. Like, you know, I came to you at one point fucking nearly ready to explode because there was just so much stuff that I just couldn't say. Like there'd be sometimes, like I went through a bad patch a few years ago where like I was just upset and I was just so confused and I just didn't know what to do, like the day-to-day sort of stuff, but I couldn't tell you why.
Yeah.
It was just that sort of, I don't even know what feeling I would give it.
Yeah.
Just didn't know what to do. And, you know, I kind of got over it a little bit and, you know, you ignore it, don't you? And get on with shit. You put stuff before it. But yeah, so just knowing that talking is an option.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it sounds so basic.
Yeah.
You know, just talk about it. But it's so hard to do.
Yeah. 100%.
Like, there was a time, like, now looking back on it, I was like, all I needed was just somebody to talk to.
Yeah.
And it's mad that that's a revelation.
Yeah.
Because it's basic, innit?
Well, this is sort of what I was saying to you when Jack and I are both heavy advocates for therapy and counselling, talking to people. Fun fact, we actually have the same therapist, or did have the same therapist.
L Doggy Dog.
Yep, shout out. But that's so weird, isn't it? You know what I mean?
What, that we had the same therapist?
Yeah, like, not at the same time, but still, it's like...
It wasn't couple sessions.
Yeah, that's why we do
Sat on
this
one
now.
end of the couch.
Yeah.
Not talking to him today.
But like when we first started like the times I've talked to you about therapy and explained to you like my experiences with it, it is literally just like talking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And often like, you know, they'll say stuff to point you in the right direction, but often you sort of just talking yourself to the conclusion, and they're just there to guide you. And it is crazy that like
when
simple.
when you told me that you'd been to therapy, it was like, I don't know, I was kind of a bit mindful and I was like, what do you mean? I was like, oh yeah, I've been. I was like, fuck, what do you... I don't get it.
Had you even considered that as an option?
No, never.
No.
Never. Before you mentioned it, never.
Yeah.
When I never thought about it.
I didn't for a long time, but I sort of just was like, something needs to happen. You know what I mean? I was like, I might as well try this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, I remember writing that first email to Big L Dog, and I was like shaking.
Yeah.
Like, fuck, I don't know if I want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I was nervous about letting myself go with my thoughts and feelings. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'd say it helped.
Yeah, 100%.
A hell of a lot.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Just if I had the money, I'd maybe like go more often. Just
Daddy
to
had the money.
just
Keep it going.
just to like, not even that there's anything particularly wrong anymore, but it's just nice to have like a scheduled time for an hour every 2 weeks where you're just going to talk about the past 2 weeks and like what you're going through and what you're feeling. It's just nice, isn't it?
You got to do it for yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
Like, there was some times that some people are like, oh, why don't you just speak to me about it? And I can't explain it, and I was like, I just can't.
Yeah.
Just can't do it. Don't know why. I don't know whether I'm scared of the way you'll react.
No.
Or just telling you because I know you, but it was just something about talking to someone who, like, you know, I had no opinion.
Yeah.
No, like, backlash sort of thing. And, you know, some people get different things out of therapy where, like, some people will look for answers. And, you know, I know for me, like, I didn't get answers from her, from speaking to her. She wasn't telling me what to do with my life. It was just kind of, you know, it's kind of like if my whole thoughts was just like a massive fuck off scribble.
Yeah.
And I was just trying to like straighten it out, do you know what I mean? Just trying to even it out and understand.
Make some sense of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is it's a very strange thing. And I think it says a lot about the sort of personal responsibility that you need to take. Even though it's like that's like the hardest part about it, you know what I mean? Because if you've got issues and stuff's a bit messed up, the hardest part is like
admitting
it and opening up and like getting out there and trying to do something to change your life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like that or nothing. You know what I mean? That is what you have to do. And even though it's the hardest thing, once you sort of get over that first hurdle and you start to open up and you start to like try and make your life better, everything gets a little easier, and then, you know, one thing leads to another. And
so my last question for you is, if you could go back and tell yourself something as like, early teens, whatever, childhood, what would you tell yourself?
Well, I know it's difficult, because I sort of subscribe to the thing that you probably think as well is that like everything that you did gets you to where you are now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Never regret anything you do.
Never regret anything you do. 50 seconds. No, 30 seconds.
50 seconds.
50 seconds to Mars.
Yeah.
Jared Leto.
Gerard Leto.
But so like part of me is like, oh well, even though that there's been like hardships, you get to where you're meant to be, but not in a destiny way. I don't think I was meant to be here. Now I feel like I got to where I am because I did certain things.
Yeah.
I'm in control of it.
So how would you summarise it?
What do you mean?
Like if you're telling yourself something.
Oh, I'd just be like, fucking carry on.
You're doing sound.
Well, I don't know. Maybe I'd tell them.
You'd tell you.
I'd tell me, but it's past me, so it's them, and it's not really me. I'd tell myself the story of what's happened to me in the past like few years, and maybe that'd be enough to like change the story and make it not happen. You know what I mean?
So you'd want to change stuff?
Well, no, I wouldn't necessarily want to change stuff, but if you're talking, I wouldn't say anything. This is what I'm saying. I would rather not say anything, but I was going to say anything. I'd be like, this is what's going to happen. You can either wait 3 years or you can sort it out now. You know what I mean? Because that was probably an option. Because like you, you put things off.
Yeah.
If it's difficult to do. Yeah, it's very interesting. I feel like I probably would just leave it and just let nature take its course.
Fair enough.
Should we get into the return of Jack's tactical tracks? We thought we'd end on a high note.
Switch up, yeah. Fuck it. 180. Whoop.
Yeah, because it's been a deep episode. I also feel like we could maybe like in the future, not anytime soon, but also like do another episode like this. I feel like there's like we could talk for another hour or two about this sort of shit, and it would be useful because I feel like I've barely scratched the surface of the stuff that I wanted to say. So. But time is running out. So, the return of Jack's tactical tracks. What is this week's question?
This week's question is, what song takes you to your happy place?
It's a difficult question, right? Because first I had to think about where my happy place was.
You ever seen Happy Gilmore?
I've not seen Happy Gilmore.
Disgusting, first of all. Watch it and you'll understand what a happy place is.
Okay. So I'm going to go with Lady Hear Me Tonight by Mojo.
Good song.
A classic banger.
Classic.
An absolute classic. And I think this is one of the first songs I remember hearing. We talked about this for you, it was last Christmas. Similar thing for this. I think I just remember hearing it on holiday when I was a kid, like a little kid. And then I had a dream where I was on holiday on a balcony at like an apartment complex or whatever in the sunset, and that song was playing. So I used to, when I was a kid, because I didn't know what it was called, I used to call it the balcony song. And that's like my mum always calls it the balcony song now. But it just like, it makes me think of that and being on holiday in summer and like...
Last song.
It just is. I remember one time me and you, we talked about it briefly in the recording session. We're like, we just put it on. Let's just fucking sit and listen to it for 5 minutes, you know what I mean?
You do this weird arm thing when we put things on sometimes.
What do you mean?
Like when I don't know if it's dancing or something, but like when you vibrate out to something, you do this weird like little spinny arm thing. If I ever find it, I'll capture it and we'll put it on like the TikTok.
I don't know what the fuck. Follow us on TikTok. I don't know what the fuck you're talking
about. That's mad if you don't know what I'm on about. It happens quite often.
Is it what? What is it?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't recreate it. It's just something you do in your house because you're a bit, gangly.
I'm a bit gangly,
long limbs.
Slender man. But yeah, I'm going to go with Lady Hear Me Tonight just because it's a total... my happy place is generally summer as well. I thrive in the summer. So, it's a very summery tune. You're in the car, the windows are down, you're vibing. I'm doing my weird arm thing, apparently. And that's what it is. What are you going for?
So mine is from The Boys. It's from Coldplay.
Oh, why?
And it's called Don't Let It Break Your Heart. It's off Milo Xyloto.
Right.
And it's just like very like happy sounding euphoric song.
Yeah.
But it also captures the message of if you're going through like a shit thing, don't let it break your heart. So don't let it get to you.
Yeah.
So there's been times like I'm feeling shit or something and it just comes on in the car, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna let it break my heart.
The Coldplay have got a good amount of songs, particularly from that era, that have like that vibe. You know what I mean? Like Charlie Brown and Every Teardrop Is a Waterfall always make me lift me up.
They're very like feel good songs, but that's just one that will it can turn me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's got a deeper message on it.
Yeah.
What I was going to say as well is something that also takes me to a good place that I thought of immediately, which I won't say because it's a bit narcissistic, but like it's not going to be my actual song. But we made a song a few years ago called Summer by Stockholm. Check it out.
On Spotify.
It's on Spotify. That just gives me like good vibes because it's a very summery song, so it takes me back to the whole summer thing. But also, like it reminds me of like that time and it being summer and like us making that song and stuff.
Yeah, you do like that song.
You like the thing is with that song, right? I thought it was one of the sickest songs I'd ever made for time, right? And you're like, oh, it's alright. And now, every 3 months, he posts it on his Instagram story.
Yeah.
And I'm like, see?
Yeah.
I fucking told you.
Yeah.
Always with like when you're out on a big walk, picture of a field in the summer with the little
Plug the Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Banger.
My second one was a MGMT Electric Feel.
Yes.
Yeah, because you know that stanky little one, like 6/4.
Yeah. I do know, but I can't work it out.
Whoa. Did you know?
Are you about to tell me that Outcast is in?
Oh, have you seen it, lad? It is. You count it, it is.
Homie, it isn't. Right.
Hey Ya by Outcast is in like 22/8.
It's like something like 4 bars of 4/4 and then a bar of 2/4.
No, it isn't.
It
isn't. That's what I thought. But like Andre 3000 says it is. Like if you count it in, boys, count it in. It is. It is the time
because I've seen the debate about it on TikTok. Right,
it's
I've seen
correct.
a lot of people
Count
going back and forth.
Count it. It's mind blowing.
I'm sure I went through it and I was like, nah. But then again, it depends.
22/8.
Part of me doesn't know. Part of me is
can't
like
count.
I can't.
Yeah, it's a 16-year-old fucking falls off.
I am shit at like working out time signatures.
Tell me about
because I'm like, why aren't you all just classing that as, like I said, like 3 bars of 4/4 and then a bar of 4/2 or whatever?
Imagine the tempo track, lad.
Yeah.
Imagine the automation.
Well, this is what I mean.
Count it.
It's like when people say about Latch by Disclosure is in like 3/4, is it? But it's only the hats and the bass that are in 3/4, the kicks on 4/4. You know what I'm saying? Like it depends where you count in the bars. Jamie explains it really well because he's really up on his music theory. So if we ever get him on, we can fucking get him to analyse it. But I'm not sold about Outcast.
I'm telling you, it was a revelation.
What do you think?
I mean, I am the expert on Outcast, and I've seen the video that you're on about where he does say it's like 22/8. I think.
Andre 3000 says it himself. Okay, well I guess you got to take his word for it.
It isn't a mad one.
You're finna have to subtitle those in. What you just said there.
but Electric Feel.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'd completely forgotten why we were talking about.
That takes me to happy place.
Yeah. Any reason why? Just because it's a vibe.
Just a vibe, the same sort you got with Lady.
Yeah.
I understand that was kind of gibberish, but yeah.
Yeah.
It just takes me to that place, you know what I mean, when it comes on. Like, I kind of won't skip it when it comes on.
Yeah. Brilliant. Well, that's the episode, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another instalment of the Stereotypical Podcast. Be sure to follow us on Spotify or subscribe to us on YouTube, depending on where you're watching or listening to this. Head over to our social medias. All the links will be in the description. Or if you're on Spotify or Apple Music, it's at o.x.collective on Instagram and the OX Collective on Facebook. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.